was once a woman named Anna who lived in a small town tucked between rolling hills and quiet rivers somewhere in Eastern Europe. Her life, from the outside, seemed ordinary: a modest home, 2 children, and the rhythm of seasons shaping her days. Yet inside, Anna carried a weight few could see, a heaviness born not only of circumstance, but of years spent believing she wasn't enough. Anna grew up in a world where beauty was currency. From a young age, she was told she was too plain, too quiet, too serious. Her classmates laughed at her simple clothes, her unstyled hair. Teachers praised others for their charm, while Anna's diligence was often overlooked. She learned early to fade into the background, to move quietly, to work hard, and to hope that one day effort would speak louder than appearance. Every night before sleep, she would trace her fingers over the pages of old books, dreaming of a life where she could matter for her mind, not just her looks. She imagined herself standing tall, speaking freely, unafraid of judgment. She spent hours wandering along the river, imagining conversations where she could express herself fully, imagining applause she had never heard, imagining laughter that included her. Early years of marriage were not easy either. She and her husband, Merk, lived humbly, counting every coin, stretching every meal. Yet, they shared laughter in small things, the sound of rain on their roof, the way their children's giggles filled the house, the soft warmth of teacups on chilly mornings. Love, in those days, was their only wealth. Anna often watched Merk quietly, marveling at his patience, the way he treated their children with gentle authority, and how he could turn even the smallest moment into joy. She kept mental notes of his kindness, storing them like treasures, though she never knew how much she would need them later. But life, as Anna would later say, does not measure strength by ease, it measures it by loss. And one winter, the world she knew shattered. Merk was diagnosed with cancer. It began with fatigue, then hospital visits, then endless nights sitting beside his bed, praying silently as snow fell outside. She watched the man who once lifted her with his laughter slowly disappear behind pain and medicine. When he died, something inside Anna went quiet, a silence deeper than grief, a kind of emptiness that stretched beyond tears. The house felt larger, colder, and every sound echoed the absence of his voice. She found herself wandering from room to room, unsure what to do with the hours, the meals, the evenings. She would pause at the children's drawings on the fridge, remembering Merk's compliments on their little masterpieces, and feel a pang of loneliness so sharp it stole her breath. For months, she moved through life like a shadow, cooking, cleaning, caring for the children, but without presence. People said time heals all wounds, but they were wrong. Time only gives you space to learn how to carry them. She spent nights staring at the ceiling, imagining Merk smiling at her, and wondered if she would ever feel capable of happiness again. She walked long distances through empty streets, letting the cold wind whip her hair, trying to feel the sharpness of life, anything to remind herself she was still alive. She would sit on old benches, watching the ripples in the water, thinking about how the current carried leaves and twigs effortlessly downstream, and how she wished she could let go of her grief so easily. She began to write little notes to herself, reminders that she was still capable of love, still capable of life. Bills piled up. Work was scarce. She tried to find jobs, cleaning offices, sewing clothes for others, selling flowers in the local market. Every night, she came home exhausted, her hands cracked, her back aching. And yet, when her children smiled, something flickered in her again, not hope, not yet, but a quiet reminder that life still demanded her presence. She learned to find joy in small things. The sound of birds in the morning, the smell of bread baking, the warmth of sunlight spilling through cracked curtains. She began noting small victories. A child learning to tie their shoes, a neighbor offering a smile, a warm meal on the table, despite everything. One evening, after the children had gone to bed, Anna sat by the window. The moonlight spilled across her small kitchen table, illuminating a stack of unpaid bills and a cup of tea gone cold. She looked outside at the sleeping town and whispered to herself, "Is this all there is left for me?" And then, in that stillness, something answered. Not a voice, not a revelation, but a simple awareness that waiting for the world to save her was another form of surrender. For the first time, she asked a different question. What if I tried again, but this time for myself? That night, she opened the old laptop her husband once used for work. It was slow, the screen cracked, keys missing. But it worked. She searched for online courses, free lessons in business, language, anything she could learn after the children fell asleep. She had always been curious, even when life tried to convince her that curiosity was a luxury she couldn't afford. She began creating a small schedule, marking hours for learning, for reflection, for small experiments. Every new skill became a tiny victory, a step forward into a world she hadn't allowed herself to enter before. The next weeks passed quietly, but something had changed. Every evening after the chores, Anna studied. She watched tutorials, took notes, practiced typing. She was clumsy at first, but she was determined. Her children would peek into her small corner of the kitchen and ask, "Mama, what are you doing?" And she would smile softly and say, "I'm learning how to make our life better." They didn't understand the full meaning of her words, but they saw something new in her eyes, light. Spring came slowly that year. The snow melted, and the first buds appeared on the trees outside her window. One morning, as the sunlight poured into her home, Anna realized she had begun to look forward again, not far ahead, not to some grand dream, but simply to tomorrow. The whisper of nature outside seemed to echo her own quiet determination. Grow. Even here, even now. She soon found small jobs online, translating short texts, writing descriptions for local businesses. The pay was small, but it was hers. For the first time, she earned money not by laboring with her hands, but by using her mind. And that realization that her thoughts, her persistence, could have value awakened something powerful inside her. Every evening, she continued studying marketing, design, languages. Sometimes, until midnight, her tired eyes burning, her tea long gone cold. But she no longer felt like a victim of her life. She felt like the author of a new one. Yet, even as progress came, the world around her didn't always applaud. Some neighbors mocked her quietly. Why is she wasting time on that computer? She should find a real job. Old friends avoided her, uncomfortable with the way she had changed. And once again, Anna faced rejection, but this time, it didn't break her. It clarified her. She realized that not everyone would understand her path because it wasn't theirs to understand. At night, when she felt doubt creeping back, she would sit outside, listening to the wind moving through the trees. She noticed how the branches swayed with grace, even under heavy snow, and thought of herself moving through life with the same quiet resilience. "Nature doesn't rush," she whispered. "It grows, even through storms." Those words became her quiet mantra, repeating them like a sacred promise to herself. She started paying more attention to small signs of life. A squirrel carrying acorns, a bird learning its first song, flowers stubbornly pushing through frozen soil. Each tiny miracle reminded her that growth is slow, patient, and steady, and that she too could grow despite hardship. Weeks turned into months. Anna's small freelance work grew into something bigger. She started collaborating with others, helping small businesses with words, design, and vision. People noticed her sincerity. She didn't speak loudly, but when she did, people listened. She learned to negotiate contracts, manage her time, and organize her life in a way that honored both work and family. She took long walks to think through her decisions, imagining each choice as a step across stones in a river, careful but deliberate. And then, something unexpected happened. A small company in another city reached out to her. They had seen her work online and wanted to offer her a remote position, stable, fair pay, flexible hours. Anna could hardly believe it. She read the message 3 times, her hands trembling. Then she smiled through tears and whispered, "Thank you, Merk. You'd be proud of me." She accepted the offer, feeling a mix of relief, pride, and quiet excitement she hadn't known in years. With her first real salary, Anna bought a few things: a new laptop, warm clothes for her children, and almost symbolically, a beautiful lamp for her desk. It wasn't expensive, but it cast a golden light, and every time she turned it on, it reminded her that light is something you create, not something you wait for. She also began small rituals, morning walks in the park, brewing tea slowly in the afternoon, and spending a few minutes each evening writing gratitude notes in her journal. These simple practices became anchors, steadying her as life continued to unfold unpredictably. She discovered a new joy in observing everyday life. The way sunlight refracted through the leaves, the sound of children playing in the distance, the quiet hum of her own heartbeat after a productive day. The years that followed were not without struggle, but they were filled with meaning. Anna built routines: morning tea, focused work, walks at dusk. She discovered that consistency was stronger than motivation, and gentleness was more powerful than anger. She often paused to notice small beauties, the way dew collected on leaves, the hum of bees, the distant call of a bird, the warmth of her child's hand in hers. She realized that life's magic often lived in the smallest moments, waiting for someone attentive enough to see it. When her children grew older, they began to understand more. One evening, her son asked, "Mama, are you happy?" She smiled and said, "I'm learning how to be." Because happiness, she had learned, wasn't a constant state, it was a direction. It was choosing to see possibility when life seemed bleak, creating routines of love and care, acting even when doubt whispered in your ear. As her professional life grew, so did her confidence. She began mentoring others, women who, like her, had been told they weren't enough. She shared her story openly, not to boast, but to remind them that even broken beginnings can grow into beautiful lives. Strength, she told them, isn't loud. It's quiet persistence. It's showing up one more day, even when no one sees you trying. And when she spoke those words, they believed her because she was living proof. One autumn afternoon, Anna decided to take her children to the mountains for the first time. It was a short trip, but it felt symbolic, a celebration of everything they had survived. They hiked through forests painted in gold and red. The air was crisp, the sky impossibly blue. Her children ran ahead, laughing, collecting leaves, pointing out shapes in the clouds. Anna followed slowly, taking in the moment the wind in her hair, the sound of joy returning to her world, the scent of pine and damp earth filling her senses. She paused often, letting the children explore, while she observed tiny wonders. A mushroom pushing through the moss, sunlight reflecting off a puddle, a bird perched silently on a branch. When they reached the summit, she stood in silence for a long time, gazing at the valley below. It wasn't wealth that filled her heart that day. It was gratitude. Gratitude for the pain that taught her courage, for the loneliness that taught her self-worth, for the loss that taught her love again. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Everything I thought broke me was really shaping me." And then something extraordinary happened. On a quiet spring morning, as Anna walked along the riverbank near her town, she met Lucas, a man gentle in spirit, patient in heart, and with a quiet understanding that mirrored her own. Their conversation started simply. The way the sunlight danced on water, the scent of wildflowers, the rhythm of the seasons. Yet, as they met day after day, talking about ordinary and profound things alike, a connection formed. They shared stories of loss, of fear, of hope, of mistakes and lessons learned. Lucas had also faced hardship, though different from Anna's. He had lost family, experienced failures, and carried his own scars. Yet, when he looked at Anna, he saw not brokenness, but resilience. "You carry storms inside you," he said one afternoon, "but you also carry the sun." Anna smiled softly. She had never thought of herself as the type to find love again. Yet here it was gentle, understanding, unhurried. Their connection did not rush. It grew slowly, nurtured by respect, shared values, and the quiet joy of being truly seen. For Anna, it was different from the love she had lost, deeper, freer, stronger. She she discovered that love could exist alongside independence, that companionship didn't mean losing oneself, and that mutual respect was the most powerful foundation of all. At home, Anna's children thrived in ways she had only dreamed of. They laughed, explored, and grew confident and kind. Professionally, her freelance work had blossomed into a small but thriving creative agency. She mentored young women online, sharing her story openly. Each message, each note of thanks, each story of someone finding courage because of her example became a light she carried in her own heart. Anna often shared the lessons she had learned quietly with friends, strangers, and even in her journal. Strength is quiet persistence, beauty is lived, not worn. Loss is a teacher, not a jailer. Happiness is not a destination, but a direction. She spent many mornings in nature, watching the sunrise paint gold across the hills, listening to the river's gentle flow. Each leaf, each breeze, each bird song reminded her of the quiet rhythm of the world and her place within it. Nature doesn't rush, she would whisper. It simply grows. So can I sometimes. She would sit with Lucas and her children in the garden, the wind carrying the scent of blossoms. They spoke of small victories, of dreams, of gratitude. And in these moments, Anna felt a profound peace, not the absence of struggle, but the presence of life fully lived. Anna realized that the most powerful triumph is not wealth or recognition, but the ability to lift others as you rise. She began recording her motivational stories, using her experiences to teach resilience, self-worth, and courage. She shared tales of her own struggles, of facing poverty, betrayal, and grief, but she framed them not as excuses, but as lessons. Every story ended with a spark of hope, a reminder that even in darkness, growth is possible. If you find yourself in a place where the world seems against you, she told her listeners, remember, you are stronger than you think. One step, one breath, one day at a time, and the world will meet you halfway. Years after the death of Merck, Anna had transformed her life in ways that seemed impossible at the time. She had raised her children to be compassionate and resilient. She had built a career that allowed her independence and creativity. She had discovered love again, gentle, understanding, real. She had found peace within herself, a serenity that no external circumstance could shake. But perhaps most importantly, she had discovered the power of choice. I cannot change the past, she whispered one evening, looking at the river under a silver moon. But I can choose how I live today. And that choice, every single day, is everything. If you are listening to Anna's story, know this. You are not defined by what you've lost. You are not broken because you have been tested. You can rise again, no matter how heavy the weight. The world may not always understand. Friends may drift away. Hardships will come. But within you is a quiet strength, a light that grows when you persist, when you create, when you choose hope over despair. Anna's journey is a testament to the truth that even in the darkest winters, spring will come. Even after loss, betrayal, and doubt, life can bloom again, bright, resilient, and full of promise. Rise, she whispers through the winds, through the rustling leaves, through the calm of nature surrounding you. Rise and grow. Your story is not over. Not yet.